Awesome. All right. Welcome to tonight's Chapter 30A, Section 20. Thank you all for attending. In person at 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, or by remote Zoom connection provided. Please note that the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. All right. We're going to go around and do a quick attendance. We're going to start with Mr. Searle.
I'm here.
Mr. Sullivan.
I am also here.
Mr. Seeger.
Present.
Chair Montfort, I'm here. Ms. Mayo.
I am also here.
All right, we've got Rich. Pijol, thank you so much. Not used to having an audience. Okay, so we are going to start with the Medway Branch Shared Use Path Workshop. All right.
Excellent. Is Andrew gonna?
Andrew, are you going to share, or are we sharing on our side?
So I have it up there. Do you want to share it on Zoom?
Okay, Andrew does.
It all, so Andrew can't.
Let me.
All right, Rich is going to pull that up.
I have it up on the big screen.
Huh? Yeah, I'll go on Zoom. All right, so. All right, give me a moment as I
No problem.
navigate to Zoom. Well, as I navigate to Zoom, I'd like to start off by thanking you all for coming tonight. I had sent out a letter.
Oh, I gotta go unlock the door. I'll get it back.
Let's see. Just gonna make sure my thing is down. It's that transition between 6 o'clock and thereafter.
We'll get there, Rich.
Come in. Thank you. So now I can share my. Uh-oh, I'm gonna have to wait till Betsy gets back just so she can me share.
It went smoother than
You want to start giving a little bit of background?
solid.
Yeah. If you just so a little bit of context and background. In 2019, which we'll get to on one of the slides, the town went through a process to prepare a complete streets assessment, which evaluates pedestrian, walking, bicycling, intersection improvements, safety, as it relates to transportation. And in terms of the complete streets, the function of the complete streets program is to look at different modes of transportation and try to work towards the select board signing a complete streets statement that as we move forward, as we look at projects, we would try to provide equity between pedestrians, vehicles, and so forth. So for many, many years, design engineers, when it came to roadway projects, they function around vehicular movement and really didn't prioritize pedestrians and bicyclists. So the state went through a process to develop the Complete Street program. We had a public outreach meetings and so forth. This is back in 2019. And the Complete Street plan was put together by a consultant on behalf of the town. The Complete Streets plan, which is, if you want to look at it full length, it's on the land use website, was approved by the state of Massachusetts, Mass DOT. Within that plan, one of the potential future projects was the Medway Branch Trail or roadway shared use path project to provide pedestrian complete access, but also better access in terms of bicyclists along with automobiles. The complete former Medway Branch corridor, right from the commuter rail station, the center of town, all the way out to Dean Street, which in large context would all the way out, get out to Millis and so forth, essentially where the rail used to run when it stopped in the 1800s. So it's the thought process, these abandoned rail beds, which have been converted to roads and so forth, could be a corridor for bicycle and pedestrian for use. So what we'll talk about tonight is at least phase one, which I did send a letter out to all you all who abut the Medway Branch, identifying that phase one is to provide pedestrian bicycle accommodations between Barnstable and Tucker Road. And that accommodation would be on the side of the sidewalk side now, which is on the same side as the senior center, which essentially would be phase one. And then we'll go through the presentation and talk about long-term over multiple phases, essentially calling phase two, which these are not, there's some fluidity to those phases, but essentially from Barnstable Road to Dean Street. Last week, I went over to River's Edge and met with them to kind of talk about this phase, but also the long-term plan in terms of this project. One of the things that came up when we did the master plan process, the planning board and the public meetings, which we had from different, we had public meetings here, went to River's Edge and so forth, was really trying to see if there's a way over time for the town to develop better pedestrian bicycle access town-wide. And one of the recommendations was to look at things that could happen off the street, so to speak, not necessarily bicycling and walking on the street. Having said that, this project overall, in terms of which was identified in 2019, it kind of falls in line with that concept. So that's why we're here tonight, invite you in to talk about it. We did submit for funding for construction money. The Complete Streets program that I mentioned is available to all cities and towns, state of Massachusetts. The funding is up to $500,000. The design and engineering aspect hasn't been done yet, and that would need to happen first. So surveying the right-of-way, identifying where features are, private property boundaries, topography, looking at stormwater, utilities and so forth. That has not happened yet. The discussion earlier in the year with the planning board was, over time, there's been subdivisions that have come before more or less previous planning boards, as opposed to the group that's sitting here today, that when a developer came in and part of the subdivision regulations required 2 sidewalks on both sides of a new street, and also a sidewalk along essentially the property that fronts along a public way, they would ask for waivers because in many instances there was no sidewalk to connect to in some of those neighborhoods that occurred, and we're talking about years of previously subdivisions that were approved. And then there was other ones whereby the planning board had determined that, you know, 1 sidewalk would be sufficient as opposed to 2 on both sides. So essentially they waived that requirement, but money was put into a fund to be able to make either physical improvements in terms of actually build sidewalk in areas where there's gaps, or the money could be used in other cases to go seek grant funding to be able to get more money to be able to build sidewalks and so forth. So the planning board initially agree that that would be a good use of the money, that money that's sitting in an account, because for a smaller investment, it provides an opportunity to fund something that's on the order of $500,000 without having to do that through the town's capital planning, from local tax dollars. So that's where it all started. And I'll go through the, switch gears to the presentation to go through it. And we'll, as we go along, we can pause for different, questions that might come up along the way. Let's see, my screen, where's my?
And then, so to set further context, this is really a discussion around a small portion of that
Yes.
plan.
Yes. Tonight, you were invited by letter to come tonight for this meeting because you're on Medway Branch, right? So your property's abut Medway Branch, which is, we're going to talk about that little segment, but then talk about in the larger context. Why the heck's it not showing my presentation here? Let me, bear with me a second, why isn't that? Oh, I don't know why. All right, let's go back to this. So we'll go to slideshow, the beginning. All right, so as I said, I think I provide decent background on what we're talking about. So this slide here that you have in your packet, this really gives you kind of a broader perspective in terms of the regional look at trails that are through the region. This map is put together from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and there is a regional goal to be able to provide and improve bicycle and pedestrian network planning region-wise. So just wanted to give you kind of the context of how we fit into the larger picture. And if you see, there's as you kind of go to this portion here, there is that potential future connection as you try to make your way towards Millis and Medway. But in reality, that's a ways out. So that's not something that's imminent. There's quite a bit of work to do for that to happen, which would also include our abutting neighboring communities. But I just want to give you a context of where this trail, shared use path, does show up on a regional map in terms of its context in the larger picture. Again, this just zooms in a little bit closer to give you a better idea. On the lower right-hand side, over here on the bottom of the right-hand side of the page, is the Metacomet Greenway, which the town is working right now with the towns of Walpole and Rentham to utilize the former rail line there as a shared use path, which would be utilized by the three communities for now, which ultimately, over time, could connect to Rhode Island along that former rail bed. So that's ongoing right now. As I mentioned earlier, this just shows you, which I know it's a little bit hard to read. If you want to, this plan is this is the complete streets plan that I mentioned earlier, which shows the Medway Branch shared use path on there as a project of priority for the town. Again, this just shows you the reference to the concept of having ways to provide pedestrian access, and reference that complete street plan to kind of continue to move forward to make those things happen. I just circled the section here, which you kind of all know, is that section of Medway Branch between Barnstable and Tucker Road. This one's probably a little bit better. I want to spend a little bit of time here. So if you see the red, this is where well, if you could see on the, does it show up on there?
Won't show up on the big screen now.
No. The arrow essentially is pointing to the senior center in terms of, so
Which arrow?
The white
the
one
red,
on
the red
screen.
arrow,
Okay.
the red arrow on your diagram,
Phase 1, got it.
phase one. So to the top of the page, to the left is Barnstable Road going down to Tucker Road. And then phase 2 is what we talked about, going from Barnstable Road all the way out to Dean Street. That's essentially phase 2. There could be, frankly, multiple phases to that, but that's a future planning phase. We identify phase 3, which is Boardman Street down to the commuter rail station. So that phase, and I know some of you are here that live right adjacent to that, you do see people walking there today. They're walking at their own risk. It's not something it's not a planned pedestrian access point at this point. In order to make that something that we encourage the public, we would have to coordinate with the abutters, we need to coordinate with the MBTA, because it has to be accessible, we need to be able to get their approval. So they're listed out there in terms of purple as phase 3, which is a much further out in terms of time frame, because the MBTA had in their capital plan to upgrade and make the Norfolk station ADA compliant. As part of that, they would connect, provide the pedestrian access to the platform, which would then also incorporate that second track. So that's kind of way out there. I'm hoping when I retire, I can come back and kind of see that, but I don't know,
Like, is way out there a decade, 2 decades, like, am I gonna be retired? Are you gonna say-
I don't really know how old you are, but you don't need to tell me. But I think there's a good chance you'll be retired.
Okay.
Yeah. Since they haven't, so this was the year they're going to start looking at the design. They haven't even done that. So, but my point is that, ultimately idea is to have that connection made. But prior to that, we get to Boardman Street, which has a sidewalk. Now it's there, so it provides good pedestrian access. You can bicycle on there. It's not super comfortable. It depends, like, how you feel about biking, whether you're okay with that or not. The general goal is for biking, and really, when we talk about biking, the shared use path is really for people who aren't necessarily avid bikers, that they want to have a little more room. You might want to go out there with, a younger person to have them ride the bike, to learn the bike. There's room. If you're an avid biker, it's not to say you couldn't go on it, but from a bicycling standpoint, it's really for comfort for other bicycle users. But then also people to have more room to walk. In fact, I was talking to the engineer that there is going to be a movement to where a 4-foot sidewalk is going to be the new standard for minimum in terms of clear. Because they recognize right now it's 3 feet, and 3 feet is not really that comfortable in terms of space to walk. It works, but again, there's a movement towards making that happen. And there's a sidewalk now between, Tucker Road to Boardman, so that's a sidewalk there. So there would be a shift, but I think we're thinking in most cases, the bicycle, if they're biking to bike, they'll be on Medway Branch, I guess, not necessarily on the shared use path. But we'd have to see. But we do have to make, we do need to make accommodations for the bicyclists. And then, as we talk about, I'll go back to the green, which is the phase 2. As you probably, I know I've met a lot of people ready to walk through the DPW yard. past the landfill and so forth, and DPW is not, as far as I know, they're not like chasing people out of there. But again, when we try to formalize things and make it available to the public, we need to make sure it's safe and it's a good interaction between that. That's going to require a decent amount of work to kind of figure that all out, because initial meetings with DPW, as you go onto their property, heading in on the right-hand side, there's that wash area, which they wash the vehicles, and they really don't want to touch that at the moment because they're using it now, and if it needs to be upgraded, you open up the whole realm of all compliance with today's standards. So those are kind of the things we need to kind of think about. An option would be to go around the DPW yard and then come back, which would be separated, most likely with a fence or something like that, to keep the pedestrians and bicyclists away from DPW function, but provide another way back to the rail bed as you get past the landfill. And I'll come back as we go through this. I have the aerial images, so we can look at those too as we kind of zoom in. But just to let you know, that's the area. And then, like I mentioned to you, to the top of the page, it's in blue. If you can see, I met with the residents over as River's Edge. As you can imagine, there's some residents that would think it's a great idea, and some are a little bit apprehensive about it. So again, we'd have to get a design money to go through that with the public and figure those things out. There's certainly had a meeting today at the senior center, and some of the residents were there that live over on Barnstable Road, and they don't really walk back there. I mean, you probably share the same thing because during hunting season, there's hunting going on, and they just, quite frankly, don't feel safe because of the hunting that goes on. Again, that would be something that we have to kind of think about as we get to that phase. But then they asked me the same question, which you probably would ask me the same thing. To be determined when. That's quite a ways out, because we haven't identified how to fund that from a design standpoint. So there are grants, there is money for construction, but that's a little further ways out. So this is I don't know how it shows up on the printout, but this is the area that we're talking about. In terms of, Mr. Burke is really the abutter in terms of a residential butter to this segment of it. The rest of it is a combination of, well, it's not really a combination. It's all town property from that segment on that side. As we get up to Barnstable Road, there would need to be a crosswalk extension there to be able to connect the sidewalks. So that would be part of the planning process. Something that has come up a couple times is some of these rail trail projects, look at parking availability for people to use them. I think this really is intended to be people use it. You use it when you're there, you're walking, and it's not intended to be a attraction point yet. When we get to the phase 2, where you go out to Dean Street, then we would think about providing some parking for people on that end if they wanted to park. But in between, there isn't any plan to provide parking for this. This is really just to make that physical connection, that gap exists. Again, this just kind of gives you an overview of this next slide of what we're talking about. Some of this property is municipally owned, some of it's private. So we would have to, which we've already sent letters to just some of the property owners to talk about it. We would have to meet with them to talk about easements and access and so forth. We would need to acquire that to be able to make that all happen in the future phase. So again, that would be part of the process. And any of these type projects, in terms of funding them from a grant perspective, there are a couple of grants, like Mass Trails has a grant where you can acquire easement rights through that. But generally the other funding sources, that's a local expense to be able to get those easement rights to do that. In some cases, property owners are okay with not receiving compensation. Some want compensation, but, we haven't had any of those discussions yet, so we don't really know yet, but just to kind of make you aware. Again, that's that future phase to the commuter rail station, which I'd love to have it happen before I retire, but it's wishful thinking and just being realistic about it. And then again, that's the phase, and then the next one is that in-between phase, which are a section of the street where there's already the sidewalk there. So again, if we were to kind of match it up with the next section, we'd have to go out, survey it, identify the property boundaries, look at the grades, look at where the right-of-way is. That might be something which is a larger project where we might be shifting things a little bit too. Like we might shift the roadway a little bit in relation to the sidewalk, but again, that's just there. We haven't done any of that work yet, so we're just, it's out there, but we haven't done anything with that. And this is just kind of a Google Drive, which is a little bit dated, by the way, just so you know, just for edification. It's 2013, so, but just, some of you live there and you ride all the time, so you kind of know, but this obviously is the one section where the grade comes up as near Mr. Burke's property, and then you get towards the senior center. So, in this image, we're driving towards the transfer station, so, from that perspective. And now this slide here shows where the Medway branch intersects with the senior center. So as you can see, there's the hydrant there that we'd have to, could very well, it might stay there, but it might have to shift. The stone walls that are here that act as a gateway to the senior center, we have to look at that and see whether it makes, you might be able to just kind of sneak around it too, so. But again, that's something that we would talk about as we get to the design phase, which would be another part of what the public would be participate in that phase of it as well. And we're just heading out the Midway branch, and then here's where we come out to Barnstable Road on the left-hand side. Again, we have to come across where the transfer station is, and then come in here, and then most likely come across, I know at least from the meeting, and I'm sure you experience it, the intersection of Barnstable Road and Medway Branch definitely floods out in a pretty good rain event, so that's something that we'd have to take into account too as we go forward to look at the design. And then last but not least, at least this kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about, what it would look like in the as a shared use path, which essentially is how we get from the edge of the road to that shared use path is something we would talk about. This showing a grass strip. It certainly very well may be another grass strip. It is a little bit shadier over there.
That's actually not showing on the screen.
It's not on the, no. Go to there you go, sorry.
But on the Zoom, is that yours?
Yeah. Why is it not on the?
I'm not sure.
Let me see why it's not showing on Zoom.
There it
Oh,
goes.
there you go. There it is.
I didn't do anything. Yeah, that's magical. All right, that's magical. Great.
There's just a little lag.
So, so that's kind of the kind of overview, and like I said, open it to questions and comments from residents. You know, yeah.
Is there gonna be a curb on the street side, like the right side of that grass, or is it just gonna be like a gradient, like it is today?
Yeah, in terms of the monolithic berm that's there, yeah. It's a great question. As of now, there's not a proposed to have a raised curb there. Like, oftentimes you'll see a vertical granite curb kind of define the edge as keep drivers honest in terms of deflection off. It's something that we're going to need to look at in terms of when we get into the design of it. It's not within the budget at the moment, but that we might have to make some adjustments, so it's a fair
Yeah,
point.
there's now and then big box trucks will drive up onto the curb, and I don't know if, not the curb, the sidewalk, and I don't know if, that's designed to withstand that amount of weight. And then we're gonna spend money to put in a nice bike path. We have big trucks parking on it. I mean, they go up on the grass. There's basically no grass
Yeah.
along the Phase 4 section of Medway Branch. So, I mean, part of it is the salt, but like also, it's the trucks parking along the side. So,
So the shared use path, in terms of like its cross-sectional, characteristics, it probably would support it, but we're not looking to have them going, so that's kind of one of the things that we need to, I've spoken to the engineers to kind of keep motorists, whether they're in a box truck, whatever it is, keep them off of that, because, landscapers, you name it, they're on it. And it's not, it's all over town, honestly, that fact. I mean, ideally, I would love to see this when we do this, is that if you have the monolithic curb, which is out there today, it's nice on the other side of the street where there's no sidewalk, but when there's a sidewalk, it provides some disincentive, it keeps you honest, right? To keep away off the sidewalk a little bit. It's not gonna stop everybody, but,
yeah.
so it's definitely a fair point, and that, when we get into design, we'll have a kind of conversation about it, because I would like to think that we could set a new standard. Like, it's not been the case in town when we have these sidewalks, they're,
Nope, hold on. For whatever reason, it timed me out.
timed you up?
Yeah,
Did somebody change my settings?
Restart it. You can just restart your meeting and you'll get another 40 minutes.
Oh,
Okay.
Am I gonna have to do that every 30 minutes?
we're gonna have to reset every 30 minutes,
Really?
Why?
because for some reason your account's not at the right tier.
Well, that's ridiculous.
That's not a good thing.
Are you logged in on the right account?
Yeah, no, it's my work account.
The 10, not,
Are you still zooming?
Gonna
I mean,
follow one, but.
did you pause, Andrew, or?
Start again.
No, we're still live on TV.
Okay, no, I just wanted to check, that's all. No, that's definitely a,
Do you want to wait to restart the meeting, or I had a follow-on question, but.
you can continue.
yeah.
So, we had talked on the phone about traffic calming measures on Medway Branch. So like on the Phase 4 section, we had talked about how there's at least 13 school-age children between like 1 and like 13 or something like that. And then there's even more kids on the Phase 1 section. I don't know exactly how many, but I see the bus stop on that section. So on Wednesdays and Saturdays, it's nuts on our street. I mean, it's not the craziest, right? It's not like anything close to what Rockwood Road is like, but the kids play outside, they cross the street, they go to each other's houses and stuff, and it's like, it would be nice to see some traffic calming measures, like, having the street slightly go side to side is something I've seen done in like the Cambridge Somerville area, for example. So, we had talked about that, but I wanted to bring it up here in the public forum.
No, definitely, that's a good point, that's something we need to talk, I've talked to the engineers about it already, because the whole, you know, and as we look at these projects, the idea is that they're for all users. So whether you're, you know, out there with a young child, or whether you're elderly and you want to have a safe, so it needs to be designed and open for all users. So it's a valid point. It's something that we need to figure out, because I do understand that needs to be addressed. And so I posed that to them already, so they're already starting to think about it. So I will, they're aware of it. I definitely understand.
Rich, is there actually a schedule for phase one? Is it happening?
So the grant, construction grant, generally, I think the state makes announcements in like maybe, so I would say January, February, so that'd be January, February of 2026. And then we'd have to, you know, start the design after that, because the way we've kind of programmed this is we didn't want to start doing the design if we didn't think we could get construction money, because if we're not going to get the construction money, then we'll, you know, not proceed. So let's presume that we got the grant for the construction. It's probably about a 6-month design, somewhere in there. And it could be a fall of 26 construction project, but I would probably say the spring of 27 to be realistic, you know. We could always bring it in, but that would be the time frame. Yes.
Chris Henry, 30 Boardman. So I just had a couple of questions. So you said the funding hadn't come in. I thought we had the funding for that sidewalk from the development on Medway that directly across from Tucker. There was a sidewalk they were going to put in that was going to connect from there down to Medway, whatever that Cape Cod Estates branch that came in there, and they said it doesn't make sense to do it there, but
So they did a
it
payment
makes
in
sense
lieu.
to use it here.
Yeah.
So
we do, they'll clarify, we do have that money.
So
That money in the pot.
correct. So my question is, if that is the case, that we do in fact have that money in the pot, and that we can agree as a town that connecting the sidewalk that is already halfway down Medway Branch, the remaining whatever hundreds of feet it is to connect to Barnstable makes sense, then why don't we start that development process now? Because we're going to either fund it out of this kitty or that, but either way, we can all agree that sidewalk by the senior center should happen. Why aren't we looking at it like that to keep the ball moving forward?
That's a great question, and that could happen. Yeah,
Okay, so
for
just-
sure. So it's not. That's kind of that's a local decision.
Yep,
To
just something we could consider.
Yeah.
And then
we don't have to wait per se.
absolutely
Like we
should-
could do that design
Thank
because
you.
we still need to do the design for it.
Yep.
But it's estimated, you know, I will say in that $500,000 range. So we'd have to. With the budget challenges, you know, that's all, you know.
Yeah, I know that money was set aside from
It's-
that sidewalk, right? And that comparable length, I would assume, so.
So the money in the account it's not that much money. It wouldn't do all that.
Is that because we're not charging enough for those sidewalks that don't happen?
It's because the material costs go up over time, partially.
Okay.
Yeah, the cost definitely.
And perhaps we're not charging enough for developers that are buying out of sidewalks. That's my only thing. And then,
Yeah, so the board did do, but it was, actually it was 2020, I think, when they just updated the numbers, so to reflect it. So we do need to revisit that number, because we don't have a subdivision, yes, so.
yeah. And then I guess my final point would be, you know, when the project that is on Rockwood Road, I can't think of the name of it, the the high density that is just beyond the train tracks there. It's not Boyd's, but it's the
The
other
village at Norfolk?
one. Thank you, the village at Norfolk. I went before the ZBA, I begged you, hey, why don't we ask this developer to give us a right-of-way that provides access from this existing path all the way through to 115? And boy, wouldn't that be great now.
Yeah, I agree. Here. I don't think it's totally not, I think there's still a possibility to have that happen. I have to talk to.
I don't think so. I think that his property runs directly up against MBTA. So you would either need to get that crossing from MBTA, which is not going to happen. They don't want people crossing.
Yeah, so you're
the
talking about
tracks.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about that last, I guess we're referring to it as section 4, phase 4.
We had to run through.
It just feels like unconnected dots, that's all. And it would have been great to have, I love this idea of public access and being able to get people out and active and in nature, and connecting that would have been great. And I think sometimes these projects come through, and maybe we could be doing a better job of holding people's feet to the fire about access and this type of thing. Thank you.
Thank you. We had a question on this side.
Yeah, so
Hold on till you get the mic. No worries.
I was just questioning, so you've had money to do this sidewalk, as you know, was talking to you folks with the senior center, and, I'm Margot Tufts, I live at 27 Medway Branch, and we were told over 20 years ago that sidewalk would be done. And you've had the money to do that for 20-something years, and it's never been done?
No,
Oh, okay, then I misunderstood.
no.
Okay.
The,
That might roll 5 years.
what's that?
He said
I don't know where this information comes from, so I don't know.
The money that we're talking about
Yeah.
is, I forget what the total is. I think it's $100 and some thousand.
160.
160. There's $160,000 in total in that account.
That could be used just to do a regular sidewalk. you
no,
think, something.
that would get us maybe 4 or 5 yards of sidewalk.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not
Okay.
enough. That's
So,
barely
4 or 5
enough for us
yards
to
of
kick off
sidewalk, and
design.
we're looking to do from Tucker all the way down to Barnstable. So that would be, what, about $750,000 for that sidewalk alone? If you're talking the size you're saying, so $750,000, never mind having to do work on the corner of Tucker and Medway Branch and the other movements and things by the senior center and whatever. So the project alone, I would think, to go from Tucker down to Barnstable is probably, what, a $1.5 million project, of which you're getting $500,000 for in this grant?
No,
I'm trying to understand some of the
Yeah.
numbers. It's not making sense.
sure. So the construction estimate from Tucker Road to Barnstable Road for that section, which is what I just,
The double wide, not a single wide.
right.
but- Okay.
single- Is the double wide, the 10-foot wide.
Okay.
It's $499,000.
Okay, little different. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But I was talking about just even the regular sidewalk that was supposed to be
Yeah,
done 20-something years
just
ago.
right.
Okay.
And that's just construction, not the design and engineering.
But if we're gonna move forward, we
Yeah.
should do the future version of the 2 small sidewalks that we now have.
Yeah, no, if we move forward with, like,
You would have to invest in the shared use path, that's the only thing that makes sense.
yeah, we wouldn't,
Right, yeah.
yeah, we would have,
But it would be great, because you do, take your life in your hands, anybody else local walks from Tucker to Barnstable.
I agree. I mean, if there's not a sidewalk, generally speaking, so it kind of works backwards in terms of here, so I think a lot of you know that we have scenic roads in Norfolk, which are great, beautiful, charm and so forth, and narrow streets and stone walls, which is great in some respects, but when it comes to sidewalks, it definitely makes it more challenging. But
I just have one more question about the design.
Yeah.
Like the design work, is that a work group? Is that like public opinion, or that's like paid engineers and?
Well, it's paid engineers, but there's public,
Yeah, how does that, like, what will that look like for?
probably
public
pretty
input?
similar to this, actually. It's, no different in terms of sending out. In this case, I would do they're not required to do, but I would do the same thing I just did tonight with you. I would send you a letter.
Okay.
So you would get essentially a personal invitation as opposed to just a notice in the paper. But generally speaking, with those, they're notice in the paper, so.
And that's after the design's been, after it's been designed, and then we have something to show.
Some public comment.
Yeah, for public comment.
And I would assume that the design has safety features, to your point, of like a
Traffic
curbing that
calming.
would stop the Amazon vehicle from hitting pedestrians. So there
Yes.
must be rules around that, or no?
There are rules, but
Best practices.
it's
more
best
than-
practices, yeah.
Seems shocking in Massachusetts.
What's that?
It just seems shocking there wouldn't be a regulation that if you're gonna have a pedestrian shared use path, you must have this kind of curbing for safety.
Well, we don't have any of those yet, so I guess maybe we'll discover
Well, no,
some.
there is, so in terms of, there is a design manual that the state of Massachusetts has for these types of projects, and there's different options how to go about designing them, so there is. In terms of that design, it's, speeds, number of vehicles on the road, and so forth, so there's different standards that tie into it and would provide the recommendations. What we will do is, if we do get the grant to construct it, I'll have the engineers who can answer a lot of those questions from a technical standpoint, answer some of those questions. So, today, more or less, is to, make you aware of this project and what's
Just real
being
quick, by
considered.
show of hands, who's for this? Who's against?
Maybe you should say which phase, by the way.
The immediate one for discussion. Phase one. Yeah, phase one. Okay.
My bigger fear is that this is a lot of bureaucracy and hoops that will need to be jumped through for what should be a sidewalk that is badly needed for a very long time.
Agreed, yeah. I mean, we'll have to go to RFP before we even award the
Yeah,
design process.
Correct, and that's all I worry about, is that it just feels like a big slowdown on what, I had, when I heard that we were taking in lieu of that sidewalk, talk was of, hey, that'd be a great place for it. So that was, I was like, oh, great, that will move forward.
Yeah.
So this feels like a great idea, but if it stops makes it a 20-year project for the sidewalk.
40, according to my friend over there.
Over 20.
So that was representative of the entire program, right?
Yeah, entire program.
Right, all four
So
phases
one of the-
of this.
Which I can't commit to this per se, because I haven't spoken to the engineer about this, but what we did talk about is if we want to do something that integrates with the future plan and not have to redo something, so if there's a plan that could be done today that would accommodate what we're trying to do near term, and then it gets incorporated into the long term, that's something that I want to talk to them about doing, because I completely understand that, at the moment, the sidewalk should have been done 20 years ago, I guess, probably more, right? But lay the groundwork for that future, so I'll talk to them about that. That's good, that's the feedback we kind of.
Go ahead.
Can I ask?
Ray Angeloni, One Midway Branch, and first of all, I thank all of you for your vision and initiative to bring something like this to Norfolk, because I love it, especially Phase 1, but I would love if there were a Phase 0.5 that simply graded that section and put gravel down, because I'm the guy in the orange jacket that's always dodging the transfer station trucks, that, also take use of that strip and speed down the end. So I would love it if it was just graded for phase 1 or phase 0.5. And if we got to phase 4, I completely applaud this because that will increase our property value substantially if you can walk to the train station safely and without having to trespass over the tracks, even if you go down and take a right and go up the bridge. But yeah, so that's all I want to say. Thank you, and I hope there's a 0.5.
I'm curious, like, is there some sort of feasibility around that portion? Something that we can have DPW look at doing and possibly we could fund out of the sidewalk fund?
Anything's possible, so I'll right?
He's in a good mood. What else do we want?
But, yeah, we'll see about,
I mean, because that doesn't sound unreasonable.
no.
No.
grade it anyway.
Right.
I think that general support from the community that to prioritize this is something that we want, and we definitely been hearing that. So it's a fair. There's a real see if that can be done.
So you.
Which actually would
you would have to
potentially say
clear. You don't have a 10-foot path with a.
no.
3-foot buffer.
But
It doesn't exist.
if I think I understand you correctly, is once it got surveyed, we know where the boundaries are with the private properties versus, and we could make grade it so it's at least you go move along the edge. It creates an edge of a street that's
Right.
that we don't have.
This is Ron Burke, 31 Tucker Road. I have questions and comments about 4-foot versus 10-foot wide.
Mhm.
I think you're hearing from other people, the neighborhood needs a 4-foot wide sidewalk, but you're proposing a 10-foot wide combined use path that I don't really care about. And if you look at the engineering and the economics of between the two, the existing sidewalk on the Medway Branch section between Tucker and Boardman is a 4-foot wide path, 2 or 3 foot separation of the road, and the total width is 9 feet. If you were to put in a 10-foot wide path along the side of my property, you would need obviously 10 feet. If you look at some of the guidelines on the internet, you'd need another 2 feet on either side. So you'd have to have a 14-foot right-of-way to put that in. And then in the case of my property, you'd have to put up a nominally 6-foot tall retaining wall on half of that, roughly.
Yeah.
So your costs go up exponentially when you transition from a 4-foot sidewalk that the neighborhood wants to a 10-foot combined use path that the state wants. So, and I think the differential in cost between what you would receive for a grant would be greater than what you receive for the grant. So I would encourage you to look at that economic aspect of things. I think there's a lot more public benefit to constructing something that you can afford now that benefits the neighborhood and the seniors and everybody else, as opposed to a long-term state desire to connect up, things with bicycles. It's more or less a separate topic down the road.
Well-
Except the state desire is how we get the funding for the
Right.
construction.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the state, let's say, I did some back-of-the-envelope cost estimating, and I think you're looking at 75 grand for a retaining wall, and the balance of cost to get down to Barnstable Road would be roughly $670,000 combined raw cost to do the 10-foot. If you only did a 4-foot, the cost of construction of the path itself is less than half, and the cost of any retaining walls or work you have to deal with existing structures and topography would also be dramatically less. So.
As
I
would
think-
be the source for funding, though. That's the issue.
But if you go to the state and they're gonna give you $500,000.
But they would only give it to us under the auspice that we would do it the way that they
Right, I'm saying
dictated.
ignore the state grant. So if the state gave you $500,000 and it cost you $1 million to build a 10-foot wide, the cost of the town is 500 grand. if you build a sidewalk that's 4 foot wide, and it only costs you $300,000 without any state input, you're $200,000 ahead and you've satisfied what the public needs.
But then where do we get that money?
Well, you're gonna have to get, where you're gonna get it anyway. You
But
would,
they dictate how we can use it. We can't, we're not just,
The match, how do you get the match?
oh, how do we get the match? Understood, got it.
So you have to get the entire.
and the cost differential can be even greater than what I, outlined, because I think you have a 14-foot wide, distance between the road and my property line. And if you're gonna put a 14-foot structure through that area, you're gonna have to come to me and ask for an easement or something, and that's gonna raise your cost even further beyond this $670,000 estimate. So I truly believe that if you're gonna try and do a 10-foot wide path in this master plan from, the train station down to the ice skating rink, you're gonna increase the net cost of that construction by at least a factor of 4. And therefore, it's not sustainable, you're never gonna get it, it'll never get done. Thank you.
Well,
Does phase 1 include moving the street, or is it just the sidewalk easement, and it's just gonna be on the north side, and it's not?
just
gonna-
on the north side,
Okay.
yeah.
My question is, all this is great, and yes, costs are gonna be a big factor. But who maintains the sidewalks now? Walk up through Cape Cod Estates. Those sidewalks are in disrepair. Where's that money being come from? I mean, I walk there a couple nights a week, just in the dark, and you can't walk in the sidewalks. The other problem you have is,
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but the DPW does maintain a list of sidewalks that are in disrepair and that they need to work through, and every year they allocate a certain portion of that funding to repair roads
I've lived in
and
the
sidewalks.
same house for over 30 years. They haven't touched the sidewalks in Cape Cod Estates.
Some knocked out our front teeth falling out.
I hear you and I believe you, and I've seen a lot of this. I think it was last year when they started this effort, right?
Yeah, so in terms of, on that particular point, one of the things that, let's call lesson learned, right?
Okay.
So the planning board regulations years ago, they required
Trees.
street tree
Yep.
between the edge of the curb and the sidewalk. You put it in the grass strip. And depending upon on-site
Roots come up.
conditions, soil types, et cetera, it's raised complete havoc in terms of the sidewalks. And now, unfortunately, the DPW, I did Worcester Road last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That was top priorities, and so moving forward, that's not how the town is recommending or having approving sidewalks in subdivisions. Either there's no tree in it's in off outside of it,
Yep.
or there's none at all because of your point.
Okay.
So,
Now, my
yeah, it's definitely a lesson.
next question is, you put in all these sidewalks at any width that we can afford, I guess. How do you maintain them? How do you plow them? Nothing up in Midway Branch is plowed. Up in Barnstable Road is plowed. You can't even get the sidewalk plowed from Tucker Road going back to the center of town, going back to the intersection of Boardman. That's not plowed.
Yeah, so
I mean, so we're talking about spending this money that I think we all want to spend, but like I said, a 10-foot sidewalk would be phenomenal, but the cost is going to be prohibitive, and then you're going to say, okay, we don't have the money, so wouldn't we be far better off to raise point, to just grade it and put down wrap and live with that?
Or I think just maybe appreciate the reality of this. I think you make a great point. Of, is this really ever going to happen? And we have been living without a sidewalk, and it sounds almost, it's great. I guess that was my point earlier. Like, there's a lot of good information from the neighbors that live right here. So to pay somebody to design something, that's a lot of money. And then I guess I'm trying to understand how the rest of it gets paid for, and the reality of this great idea. I totally agree, but will we,
Cost prohibitive, maybe?
well, I don't
I
know.
think to answer your question, the process is actually kind of working because one is we haven't spent a cent on design. We're having this public meeting this evening. We had the public meeting this morning from the seniors. We were at River's Edge. I was at River's Edge last week to get the feedback from you all. And then that information will be discussing with the engineers and kind of decide what makes the most sense and that's feasible. So I think we're doing what we should be doing and not doing what was done in the past. It may not be perfect, but we are listening and that's what we're trying to do a good job to go forward and make sure it works. So,
If I may make a suggestion,
and
why don't we come up with a cost of, per foot of sidewalk, okay?
Because by the time we actually go to build, it's going to be different. We're going to have to do that much closer to when we actually are ready to do that. And
I
the
could-
first step is really, we've got to get the plans. We
Yeah,
can get an
can't give you that
estimate.
number, but
So my whole question is, and would a 10-foot, or some people say maybe it's gonna be 12 or 14 feet wide shared use path,
it's not going to be 12 or 14 feet.
the right of way,
Talking
okay,
about
but
the right
to accommodate the 2 foot was gonna be that much. Is that gonna look good in our street? Do we need that?
Well, no,
I'll take 4 feet and be done with it.
could the shared path start, is that, like, just be on that phase
What's that?
from Barnstable to Dean? Could you just do the shared use, whatever it's called, path, starting there? Like, I think, right? Instead of you just have a regular neighborhood sidewalk, and then, oh, I'm gonna keep going, versus giant shared use path on their property, which is, as you say, not people parking and coming, it's us.
Yeah.
We are the walkers,
You are
or the
one.
runners.
Yeah.
I can't run.
Again, I'll just go back to what I just said. I'll said 2 minutes ago. To me, the process is working. We're we're testing an idea, and we haven't designed anything yet, and we're trying to move forward and make it work. So it's all possible. So I'm not. There's no ruling out any of these ideas that we heard here this evening for sure.
And
I don't know how the grant works, but you could perhaps convince the state through your narrative that the neighbors and the aesthetic of Norfolk, a regular sidewalk works till here, but we need you to help fund that so we can do the rest of your awesome shared path idea.
Yeah, and that's kind of what, like I said, talked about.
Get
them
to kind of fund, because it will look funky. It takes away from your Norfolk scenic.
And so in the interest of time, we do have an appointment at 7. I'm going to allow one more comment, and then we're going to move on the agenda.
Okay, last comment then, I guess. Thank you. Again, I appreciate your process and that you're asking. And just like I mentioned about phase 0.5, maybe a phase 0.3 quarters could go through to the
Can we
train
nominate
station.
you to the naming board?
Yeah, so all the way to the train station would even be, if that were gravel as well, so that's all.
We always look
Appreciate
at multiple options, so it's good to have the ideas.
Absolutely, and we welcome your ideas between now and our next meeting on this topic. You can send them to Rich, you can send them to me. All of our emails are up on the website for the planning board. Thank you for the participation. This is awesome. It's always great when we can have these types of conversations. If you're not subscribed to the Norfolk newsletter, make sure you do, because that's how you're going to get the most information about the next time we're going to have a discussion like this.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate the time today. Thank you so much.
Let's get that
All right.
sidewalk after 20 years.
Right. So we do have a public hearing at 7 p.m. for 19 Valley Street. There was a request for continuance, though, to January 13th, 2026. This has already been opened and read, right?
Correct.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to continue the public hearing for 19 Valley Street to January 13th, 2026 at
7 o'clock.
7 p.m.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. All right, so our next one is going to be 28 Long Meadow Road. This is the update on the stormwater management and earth removal permits. This is the one that we had started discussions on finding.
Yes, so just quick recap. I sent a letter out to the attorney representing the property owner. I did not hear anything. I do know, from what I understand, that the town has hired, hasn't started yet, but assistant DPW director, and I believe a director. And if just kind of a quick recap, the finding process goes through that department. So once they're appointed on board, I'm going to be reaching out to them with my list of things, and this is top on the list to give them the context. So, but I didn't hear anything from the owner or the representative, huh?
Or the attorney for the.
Or the attorney, engineer, no one.
Okay. All right, up next we have 4 Sharon Ave, vote to grant permanent occupancy.
So the,
Do we have to vote to continue that further?
It wasn't a public hearing.
just a, no.
Oh, that's Valley Street, gotcha.
So for Sharon's, which always kind of but
Did we ever get an official ruling on which one it is? Because one meeting we said it was both.
I'd like to know.
It depends on the document you look at, but I'm pretty
Yes.
sure it's officially Sharon's, right?
I think it is officially.
No
with
apostrophe
an S.
either, just
Yeah, no
Sharon.
apostrophe, yes. So yeah,
Apologize, my agenda is wrong.
that's all right.
But no, it's been, I mean,
No, it is
there's
it?
multiple documents that you look at and it says clearly Sharon.
Well, technically it is with an S. I suppose we should update our, later. Is our property?
Fun fact, in Reese's Pieces, the way they spell Reese's, it's possessive, so you're really eating Reese's candy. Think about that.
Is it Berenstein or Berenstein?
Yeah. Well, and also the whole assessor's database has no S on it either, so, but
Yeah.
we'll put it on the to-do list to get that corrected, so whether you want to call it Sharon's or Sharon,
We just want consistency, Rich.
consistency, we strive for consistency, sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. However, for Sharon Ave or Sharon's Ave is ready for a full CO, so that's what I'm here.
Okay,
To the
so
planning board, so
work's been completed, there's
Work's
nothing
been
outstanding.
completed.
As-bills have been good, they're reviewed.
as-built been reviewed, and it's ready for a permanent occupancy permit. Once the tenant gets in there, they'll put the sign up, but the posts are there.
Yeah, that was
Not
the only
there?
outstanding item, right? Just
Now
the
the
sign?
post gotta go in. What's the situation on the post?
You want to come on up? Yep. And then you can also give us your opinion on Sharon versus Sharon's.
Bill Lopoulos, Sharon Ave. I was going to say the sign on the street says Sharon, no S. So
Noted.
that's what we call it.
All right.
As far as the sign, so the tenant, I was waiting because we have the ability to put a 12 square foot sign without a special permit. And I just wanted him to let me know what dimension he wants to sign before I put these things up. And he could have he could have asked for a square sign or a rectangular sign. And he just let me know today, after waiting for him for 2 weeks, that he wants a 2x6 sign. So I got to build, these posts to reflect that. And that's it. But we'll put it in the exact space that's placement that it is on the plan.
Okay. And then any external lighting or anything like that going on it?
As soon as
Just
the
two
sign
cans.
It's basically the conduit's already under the ground. All we gotta do is 2 lights just facing up.
Okay.
Not illuminated, just facing up. 2 or 3 lights. I don't know how they're gonna do it.
Okay. Any issues, any concerns?
No, I was by there yesterday.
Yep.
Coffee.
Yeah, I'm by there every day, and I appreciate the sign being lowered.
Yeah.
It's much safer now, the exit sign. I can see
100%.
oncoming traffic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Now we gotta get 4 Kicks to do something about theirs. All right, so then I'm looking for a motion to approve permanent occupancy for 4 Sharon Ave.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion's approved. Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Guys.
All right, now we have 17 Shire Drive, vote to extend temporary occupancy.
Yes.
Why now?
Unfortunately, we still have not gotten the property through the foreclosure process, through the land court. So,
Is this going to be the same for 19?
yeah,
Okay.
it's both the same.
All right, how long do you want?
Any idea, this seems like it's taken a long time, but it's clearly not in our court. Like,
No, it has taken a long time. It's not seemingly. It's taken a long time.
so,
But to
And
his point, it's nothing that we can control at this point.
we have no control over the land court.
Right.
and they're pretty backed up from what I hear.
Yeah, they kind of work on their own, seems like their own schedule. There's not a boss that says, hey, get this done. Maybe there is, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like that, like, there's not a priority.
Okay.
I also think they just legit have a backlog. I have a personal friend who has a date for a new case that's a year and a half out from like last week.
Oh, wow.
Well,
So,
all right, I guess they're under, so maybe they're understaffed, I don't know, but it's still taken an inordinate amount of time, so we need to, and we don't want to have them complete their site until we know what's going on.
Right. So are we comfortable with the 6-month extension at this point?
Oh, yeah, we'll need a 6 month. I wish I could say shorter.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel
But-
bad for those guys
Do you want to go longer?
that
Do
bought
you want to do
Let's go
8?
6.
Six.
I like reporting into the board.
Okay. So we are going to need a motion to extend the temporary occupancy for 17 Shire Drive till June 15th, 2026.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion's moved. All right, I'm going to need a motion to extend the temporary occupancy for 19 Shire Drive to June 15th, 2026.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Yeah. All right, good. So now we have reviewing and approving the 11/10/2025 meeting minutes.
So they were distributed in the pack. Before we go for approval, are there any questions, comments, or concerns on the minutes that's distributed?
Nope. And I reviewed the meeting while it was on the website, so I can go ahead and vote.
All right, in that case, we'll take a motion to approve the minutes from the November 10th, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Awesome, perfect. All right, so Rich, let's talk 100R Pond Street Wireless Facility.
So got a draft decision in there, which is, I would say, the final version of it for you to vote and sign. The T-Mobile got their special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals last month, October, November? It was October, yeah. It's actually, October, the appeal period's already run its course, I think. Or not. That's close. All right, the appeal period hasn't, but regardless,
Filed,
We-
was that last week or the week before?
it was approved by the ZBA, and that was why you were waiting back in October, because they need to take action first, so now it's for you to approve the site plan.
All right, pretty standard approval. I don't see anything crazy.
It's a pretty standard approval.
No waivers or anything. All right, so looking for a motion to approve the site plan decision for 100R Pond Street Wireless Facility. Yep.
This is exactly the same as what we looked at last month, right?
Yeah, I think,
Yeah, it's pretty much, but there's like
Just a couple of minor edits.
minor edits.
Minor meaning nothing's changed as far as the technology or.
No.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion's approved. All right, Rich, you're gonna go into town meeting recap?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna take a quick break. I will be right back. You can continue without me.
IT said I should be okay now. He must have done something with my settings.
Oh,
I
okay.
emailed him.
Okay.
He said you might want to log out and log back in. I said, well, I'm running a meeting right now, so it's.
Okay.
Hi, Betsy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm Jack.
Jack,
Hi,
Hi, thanks for waiting all that time.
We have?
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
As long as there's no public comment period during the planning board meetings?
Not typically unless it's on the agenda, but you can ask the chair.
Okay, when he comes back?
Sure.
Thanks.
Should we just take a minute? Oh.
I'm gonna get water. Yeah.
All right.
It's all right. We're in a schedule, I think.
Yeah, so recording wise, you're taking a break, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
otherwise he's.
yeah.
Thanks. All right, we're back from that short adjournment. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
All right, so town meeting recap. Back
Yeah,
up.
so I kind of, I walked out of town meeting and said that, you kind of learn things throughout your career in municipal government and so forth. And where we arrived, I think, in terms of the world, is an AI world. And in the AI world, the information is not always accurate. And what's concerning is that that type of source was used in terms of kind of a discussion on the articles that were before town meeting, particularly around the inclusionary bylaw. So I went back in and I provided you a letter, the communities that were mentioned in terms of having issues with the inclusionary bylaw, and some don't even have an inclusionary bylaw.
Right.
So, that's not good in terms of as it gets reported out. And then some of them, what was reported out as them having, they don't have that either in terms of payment in lieu and what those formulas are. So what I did is I went into each of those communities and pulled up their bylaws, and I only include the ones that were more town-wide because we were talking about the town-wide inclusionary bylaw. But I thought it was important for you as the elected body in terms of dealing with zoning, and then to talk about it with the advisory board and overall in terms of the process, because I think there's people that were in that meeting that evening and thinking that, oh, well, this is an issue in XY town because it's being reported out that way. But that's not the case.
Right.
And a step further, I reached out to one of those communities to see how the Attorney General's office advised you that your bylaw is going to be a problem or not, and none of them did. And in fact, some of those bylaws have been from years ago. So it creates a conversation that's not based on accurate information. We strive to be as accurate as we can. And I did speak about Weston at town meeting because I had the opportunity and reached out to the planner in Weston. She goes, my goodness, we would love to have a town-wide inclusionary bylaw. We don't. We have one as it relates to the MBTA zoning, like we do here. And those bylaws really kind of mimic what we have already today, ours, which we kind of modeled after. The percents are a little bit different, as I showed you. A bulk of them are 10, but they're 15. The starting point's are a little bit different. But the point is, we need to kind of figure out a process where we can, the source needs to be validated, that it is real, accurate information.
That's really hard, right?
It
Because
is.
it was, you're talking about, we were presenting, and then there was false information being commented on about our presentation. Yeah, and it wasn't accurate. And that can happen with ChatGPT. It could just happen with
Regular
anyone.
research.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
So I don't know how we.
It clearly, it can happen with any research, but when you pull up this little thing called the phone, and you pull up ChatGPT or whatever, and you're scrolling through it, looking at it, it's a significant issue that we're going to have to deal with, I think, going forward, because again, you don't. Our form of government is open town meeting, so it's not as if some communities have representative town meeting or councils and so forth. So you're there one night, you may be there 2 nights. It just was disconcerting because of the work that was put into it, and the fact that the valuation in terms of those numbers that we derived were reasonable and fair. And if you looked at the formula that we talked about before, our existing formula is far above what was put in that bylaw and the reasons. It's just, I don't know. I don't have an answer, but I think it's worth, it really, well, again, I went home and I'm thinking, do these towns even and they don't.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm glad we're able to set the record straight, post that, how many people in the town are going to see this and know what we're talking about first and foremost. Like, unfortunately, I don't know that many, especially those folks who attended the meeting, are going to have this follow-up. But it is something for us to ensure that we are on top of in the moment when we're having these types of discussions and being diligent about asking for sources and ensuring that we can have that type of conversation. So maybe it's a further conversation that we have to have with Jay to allow us to either fact check in real time or otherwise, right? Or strike that type of conversation from our open forums like that if we can't substantiate.
Well, I even think it kind of steps back a little bit prior to that we kind of develop a process where when, you go that one, I feel like the advisory board probably going forward needs to be earlier in the process. So they get a sense of whether it's a member or something like the big picture, and as you're kind of talking about these bylaws. And then second to that, we have a process to go in there and kind of discuss it and come back. I mean, I think, multiple times it came up, like, the town council review this, and they do.
Yeah.
Actually.
Multiple times.
Multiple times.
Yeah, every time it's revised.
Every time. So, and we're sitting in the meeting, and then we're at advisory board, and like, did it get reviewed by town? I watched the meeting back. I'm like, yeah, it did. Like, so, And
then you got fact checked by ChatGPT.
I think in fact, so I don't know. I'm just kind of like.
Yeah, I hear you.
It definitely.
It obviously rubbed you the wrong way, and it should, So I hear you. I appreciate it. I'm grateful that you were able to do that due diligence and ensure that, what we were putting forward was factual and that we weren't going against what other towns, especially in our area, were doing. So.
And Melissa sold the truth. So
yeah.
That's
100%.
I do my research. If anything, I'm thorough.
What I'd like to do is also just point to the fact that we were able to essentially flip the decision from the advisory board into our favor and get our changes made, right? That was huge. That was immense. It's been contrary to what I've seen from the town and the advisory board as well. So I think, that speaks volumes to us and the way that we present and the information that we're providing. And, Gary, Melissa, Dan, I think you worked on that information as well. But regardless, whoever worked on that presentation, just thank you and awesome job.
Thank you. I do think advisory had a valid point, though, just to be fair, about the reason they weren't signing off on it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Completely. All right. Any other updates?
We can think about that, though, like ways that we can try to I mean, I think it's just like, I don't know, trusting the source, right? Like I've never knowingly, nor would I give false information, so I hope that people would know that. But I've probably fact-checked my own work about 20 times, so I don't know.
And
We can think about it.
But I think to Rich's point, it's to have that type of conversation much earlier.
Yes,
As
yes.
opposed to having it in a
Yeah,
forum such as the one
absolutely.
we did.
I mean, I use
Sue has a comment, I'm quite
Yes.
sure.
Sue.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. So I have a question. I think we kind of have an opportunity coming up, and if I'm overstepping, please just let me know. But we have a new town administrator coming into Norfolk, and one of the things that I struggle with when the planning board brings these types of articles to the advisory board is, it's a lot of information, and we have a short period of time to try to explain it, or Rich does, and then if I have any involvement. And I wondered if it's something that is the planning board required to bring their articles before the advisory board? And I'm certainly not looking to eliminate a process, but the experts for planning are our town planner and our planning board. And sometimes I think it's almost an impossible task to educate and teach folks. I learn something new every day from Rich. To try to get all of that crammed into, the 15 minutes or the half hour that you may get before the advisory board, and then you may get a second shot back if somebody is looking for some additional information. So I just think that it's an opportunity to speak to an incoming town administrator, and if that's an option, not sure it is an option. I think it was discussed a long time ago. But it was just something that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, so we looked at this in Town Government Study Committee, 6 or 7 years ago, and the way our bylaw is written, no, it's not financial, right? So it doesn't have to go in front of advisory, but the catch is and I don't have the verbiage in front of me, but advisory may have input on effectively anything on the warrant, and that's so no, they really don't have to, but they at their will they can choose to do it. And we brought this up to we were reporting at the time to select boards as something for review, and there was just too many other things that took priority, so it kind of dropped off.
And then so in short, the risk that we take is that they look at it for face value. There's no representative from the planning board. Rich isn't in attendance to this meeting, and we can't explain away their concerns, right? That's the risk we take if we don't bring it to them, because they can choose to review it on their own volition and then make their own judgment based off of just what they have in front of them.
Sure, and not that I think that would ever be like consciously sabotaging us or something like that. It's always well-intentioned, but to Sue's point, the original point there, it's a lot. I mean, some of this we are distilling down into a warrant article, and it's been 60, 80, 100 hours worth of communications over a couple of years. So it's very, very hard to be comprehensive when you're doing that.
Yeah.
But it's like you need 2 cycles. It's just like in business. You circulate your notes ahead of time and get feedback, and then you go in and you make your presentation. It's like we don't get 2 tries. You get 1 try, and it's a few days before the town meeting, and all the information isn't there, and you can't defend it. You can't go back and reply a second time. So it's almost like, I think you just need another cycle with them.
Yeah.
That might be the first.
Get their feedback.
First
Yeah, the tough part is they're not a board, Gary, that meets regularly
yeah.
unless it's town meeting. For the big town meeting, they start, I think, 8 weeks before. For a smaller town meeting, they start 4 to 6 weeks before.
Yeah.
So, most boards, and I understand why, but, with other boards where you meet more regularly, it's easier to kind of digest and pass along information. But I don't think it hurts to have a conversation with, maybe how do we, to piggyback on Rich's point, how do we more effectively get this information to them other than just in a meeting where, your slot is 30 minutes?
Right.
Mm-hmm. I don't think distilling the information is really that, I mean, we have to do it anyway for town meeting, right? So I don't mind that part.
Half the time.
Yeah, exactly. We have to do it anyway, so I don't mind doing the presentation and presenting it to them and getting the feedback. I actually find it to be helpful because they'll think of things that are just completely off the wall, and I think, that's some stuff that we don't think of, and sometimes one of them in particular laughs about it and says he does it on purpose, and that's fine, because there might be that question might come up. But I do think because they only meet for, a short amount of weeks, I don't know how we get them involved sooner, because we're not going to have everything ready when they're meeting at the previous cycle before the other town meeting, nor are they going to have time for us at that point. So unless they change to a different schedule, like, a regularly scheduled board, I don't know how we can solve that problem.
I mean, we can always petition for a liaison to join our planning board meetings when we start talking about warrant articles, and then we have someone who's in the room that's gone through this with us as we're doing this.
There's certainly ways, yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, and to everyone's point, so we have a incoming town administrator that served on the advisory board, so, certainly it's good to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Once he's in the position, I intend to do that, right, talk about stuff.
Yeah.
He's been around a number of years and has history too, so. Sorry, well, I think it's important. It's just
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sue.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
the AI adds a little.
I hear you. It really stung you.
It does.
I got it.
Yeah.
Donna, you had your hand up as well. Did you want to make a comment?
I wanted to make sure you know Sue had this physically raising her hand.
You're the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see Sue.
Thanks, Donna.
Thing that struck me the most was like 79 people voting. Was it more than that? I thought it was 79 people voting at the town meeting. What was the total number of people there voting?
That's about right.
79,
Yeah.
right? Because I
There were
thought 40 votes,
107
one changes.
117 there, right? But some of them were on the other side.
Yeah. It was a good turnout. It was a good number of votes in the affirmative. Yeah.
Yeah, but a couple of thousand people would be good.
Yeah, a couple of thousand.
I hear you.
Yeah,
Would need
but
much
it's always
bigger
been the same thing.
auditorium.
The biggest turnout I recall is when we were in the field behind
Yes.
the school during COVID. And,
Well, the biggest was the fire station, I think. More
oh, that's right,
recently.
yes, because that had to do with spending money.
Two rooms,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
That outdoor one's great. I got a sunburn.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's a government study kind of thing too, right?
MIT runs a whole public education, how to get public engagement. Jonathan Smith tuned me into that when we were doing town government study committee, and but it's not free. But they do give out free resources. But send a couple of people from town hall and 8 residents for how much their certificate program costs. But there are people trying to solve this problem.
Sorry, well, we're just talking about a little,
Yes.
little thing in the.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We're
So,
venting.
that's it. Thank you.
Any other updates? No?
No.
All right. Seeing that we still have an audience member, I'm going to ask if you have anything that you'd like to state.
Make a public comment?
Yeah.
Please come ahead. Grab a seat over here on the mic if you'd like.
We're saving this chair just for you.
Just introduce yourself, address, and
While you're taking your coat off and preparing, I'll just say, so, at select board and at school committee meetings, you have your public comment at the beginning, and we do ours, we think in a helpful way where you can have the kind of back and forth during, or at least ask questions after we talk about something, because how would you know what your questions are until you've heard us talk about it? But then Jack asked today, he's like, do you guys have an open comment? Or a public comment period? And we don't. It's just, so maybe it's just something we can talk about since we're figuring out our future plans and how we're going to fix everything and make it better.
something to think about.
Yeah, the school committee has one, the select board has one. I was kind of surprised that.
Yeah, typically everything we do is so operational, and so like we're
Yeah.
usually sticking everything into the bucket of what it is we're talking about. So.
Sure, I get that. So I'm here tonight because I wanted to talk a little bit about the.
Quick, introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. My name is Jack Oliveri. I'm at 4 Barrel Place in Norfolk.
Thank you.
So I'm here tonight because I wanted to talk a little bit about the solar farm on Pond Street and Sharon Avenue. And before I get started, I'd just like to say I understand that this board is not the same board that was around in 2020 and 2021. And a lot of the players on the committees and boards have changed too. So this is really not any kind of a negative discourse on individuals. It's about a process, really, that I wanted to talk about. First of all, I'd like to invite the planning board, and we're going to invite other boards, to a public hearing. And Rich and I have been corresponding, and he indicated that there's going to be a public hearing in January because NextGrid had petitioned to increase their battery size. So this is not about the solar panels. I think many people in town want to have clean energy, and they appreciate having clean energy. This is about a concern we have, and there's about 50 residents that have we've put together a team on this. It's about the battery storage that's on the site. And we've tried to get answers. We really have tried to get answers about the battery storage. And we haven't gotten any, or gotten very few. And I've talked to other officials in town, such as the fire department, the fire chief, police chief. I've talked to Melissa, and we've tried to find out what is going on there. And what we're trying to say is that we think we need a separate ad hoc public meeting, public forum, where residents, and like I said, at least 50 I have, and I stopped counting at 50, can have a forum where they can ask questions and try to get answers before we go into the permitting process in January for the additional battery storage. The reason we think that's important is that the nature of there's a lot of confusion in the community, and what we see as missteps in the past that we'd like to clear up. We'd like to know, for example, or understand how site approval was granted without a technical, detailed discussion of the battery storage, which is not on the plan. And the details were not provided to the appropriate board and committees of the town. I talked to the fire chief. I said, do you know what's going there? He goes, no. I said, well, do you know what battery technology is? Is it lithium ion, lithium phosphate? Is it, what kind of batteries? He says, I don't know. I asked him, do you think you'll be able to put it out? Do you have the equipment to put out a fire there? He says, I don't know. So this is a question of safety to the people of Norfolk and safety to the environment in Norfolk. We know very little about the battery storage, and we think we need to have more details. And without this information, we cannot talk about the safety or the environmental impact of that site. We really can't, because we know very little about it. In December of 14th, 2021, Mr. Serber, I think that's how you say his name, he stated, and it was in the minutes, that the solar voltaic system will have battery storage, and on the video he said it would have battery storage and inverters. And I looked at the tapes of the planning board back then, and I looked at the minutes, and there was no discussion of batteries at all. There was a lot of discussion about drainage, screening, visual impacts, antennas, water tanks, and interestingly enough, there's an extreme amount of detail on the site plan about how to plant trees, specifically the type of tree that's being planted or should be planted, the height of the trees, the size of the hole, the backfill, the mulch required, the pruning, the trunk flare, the spacing, but no further mention of batteries. There were also 5 more public hearings, and the public hearing was extended until April 28th. And those five public hearings I looked at until it was closed in April 28th. There was no discussion at all of batteries, battery storage, or inverters. Now, inverters can make a lot of noise, and they've had problems in Martha's Vineyard and other areas of Massachusetts with inverter noise. They've also had a lot of problems with battery fires and how to contain them. If they're lithium batteries, you just can't throw water at it if there's a fire. Lithium reacts with water and air. So there's specialized containment systems that must be used. And we haven't heard from NextGrid, and I don't think you've heard from NextGrid exactly what the plan is. How do you put a fire out? Is it in a box? So if it leaks, the fire chief said, my biggest concern is so it leaks into the groundwater. if we got toxic chemicals in there, then we got to do a cleanup. So there's a lot of concerns, and I think we need to talk about them and understand what exactly is going there and how big it is and what the plan is from NextGrid to handle it. There's also been a lot of misinformation. On the ZBA site acceptance plan that they had, they talked about requiring the developer NextGrid to clean up the site from contamination. So we read that and we did some research. And it said in the ZBA document that it was formerly an auto salvage yard, right? So we did some research, went on the Mass DEP site where they log all the contaminated sites in Norfolk. There's 42 sites in Norfolk that are contaminated, that are either currently contaminated or been remediated. There's only one listing for an auto salvage site. That's on Lincoln Road, the other side of town. And that's the only site that's addressed there. Nobody else reported a contaminated site at Pond Street. And yet, we're requiring them to clean up the contaminated site, and NextGrid agreed to clean it up. But there is no contamination there. So there's a lot of confusion about what's going on. So we also asked the Select Board to have an agenda item that we can talk to them about, because there's been, you've probably seen it, an Office of Inspector General of the state of Massachusetts put out a memo in June of this year, finally, 6 months ago, talking about the procurement process and the bidding process back in 20 and 21. And they found a lot of irregularities. And yet that document, I happened to find with a Google search. I never heard it mentioned in the town. The town hasn't said anything about it. The select persons, people that were copied on it, never said that to us. They hid it from us. And that's a concern. We need to have an open, transparent discussion. And more importantly, we need to have a debrief to understand what happened, why it happened, and put procedures in place so it doesn't happen again. Because we're putting the town at legal risk, in my opinion, for things we did during the bidding process. And it says that in the OIG letter. We changed the bidding. We accepted a bid after the bidding had closed, after we said we're not going to do that, and we did it. And so, you know, there's a lot of issues there, but the primary thing we're concerned about is the battery issue. So I'd like to get your buy-in on having you attend or participate in an open public hearing with other boards so we can all ask questions and understand what's going on with this. Make sure we make the town as safe as possible with the batteries they're putting in, and the inverters, and the transformers. And I think Melissa and I talked about this. There are pads on the site plan that says pads, battery storage, typical, 3. That's it. But we know exactly what kind of trees we're putting on and how to prune them, but we don't know anything about the batteries that I'm aware of. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but we haven't seen anything, and we've tried to get that information. And I think the other point I want to make is when we find out what that information is, all the boards and committees need time to review it before we go into a site planning meeting. They probably need a month or more. And we need some experts to look at that and say, you know, we have the time to look at this and understand what it's doing, what kind of technology we have. Does the fire department have people trained to do this? And if not, who's going to pay for that? Do they have the equipment? And if not, who's going to pay for that? So it could be a big incremental cost, but you know what? It'd be a lot worse if we have a disaster. We need an emergency preparedness plan, a disaster plan, and the fire chief says we need an evacuation plan too. Because if toxic cloud goes over that site, it may, depending on how it works, it may need more than just the evacuation of the site, but maybe the evacuation of part of Norfolk and Rentham. So we got to be very careful with large batteries like that. And we have a pretty good expert on the Board of Health, Andy Bakanowski. But he hasn't been able to get the information either. So that's my pitch.
I appreciate it. So first and foremost, I just want to thank you for your time and your diligence in looking into all of this. Secondly, I want to state that the proper thing for us to do is go into this hearing process in January on the 13th. Reason being is, as you've noted, it's not just a single meeting where we're going to review and agree on something at that moment. If there's additional questions, if there's back and forth that's required, it's going to draw on until we're satisfied and we've met the requirements of what's required. Additionally, I want to state that the planning board is only required to review certain portions of the plan. None of us are experts within the scope of batteries or electronics or anything to that effect. Our requirement is to look at the site plan from the site plan's perspective and ensuring that everything that is within our scope and within our purview is to this town's standards and requirements. And as someone who was on the board at that point in time, that was what we did at that point. The additional requirements, there's possible scope that might be missing from other boards or other specialties within town government that are not represented, either from the fact that we are not the size that we need to be in order to support those roles or boards or positions. But it's also other things that fall within the zone and the purview of other boards that we cannot speak upon, just in the nature of what it is that we do. If we were going to do a meeting as you've described, I don't know what the mechanics of that would look like because of open meeting laws and how that all works. We would need a overarching board to be the one that would hold that, and we're not going to figure out how to do that before the already published information that we put out there on the January 13th from an agenda perspective. So I don't know that we'll have that before January.
Are we going to have the information for people to review it before the January 13th, or the first time they're going to see it is going to be in that meeting?
The first time I might see it might be the 12th. But does that mean that I'm not going to provide the due diligence that I provide, all of the documents that I have to review prior to these meetings in order to get the answers to the questions that I need answered before I can move on and approve something?
So just a little clarification on a couple of things. We haven't received the plans yet for January, so January.
It's a tentative date at this point.
Tentative date, so, but as soon as they come in the office, absolutely.
So have we seen the plans for the site approval that we already did in terms of the batteries? Have we received anything about the batteries when we approved the site plan, when the site plan approval happened?
In terms of
I mean, anything that we've received is publicly available on our website.
So the answer is no then, that we haven't seen it.
I mean, it's not within our purview to review and approve batteries, so.
Well, who's, within whose purview is it?
I would assume building, right?
I think it's likely the building permit.
The building department?
Yes, that's.
Well, those are things that typically would be. I'm just thinking, I'm also thinking we should have some information before we do. I think there is actually a process issue. I just don't think it's the planning board's issue, but I would like to work with Jack and the new town administrator to try to figure it out, because we don't have an emergency response director, and I think in that case, what?
Just sitting here.
Emergency response director?
And Nolan?
We have an emergency, who?
He's in our emergency management director.
We have an emergency management director?
And
So
I'm sitting here.
I have looked,
Suit.
so see, like this is, okay. So
We had a good meeting already.
here we go. So we were talking, well, I talked with a bunch of people and we thought maybe this would be owned by public safety, right? And so thinking, and no one has said at any point that we have an emergency response director.
So I guess the
now
more-
knowing that we have one.
Yeah, how many hours does the emergency response director work for the town of Norfolk? Do we know
It's a
that?
volunteer position.
10 hours.
No.
10 hours?
It's at Nolan.
Okay, so 10 hours. That's the answer to that position.
Okay, well,
That's his.
There's an
Rich, that's his
emergency
commitment.
response document that was generated years ago that Ed Nolan signed off on.
a template. Right.
No, it's a finished document. In case there's water damage, a train derailment, you name it, it's in the document. Ed participated in that. Eileen, my wife, led that work. And he just signed off on it. He reviewed it and signed off on it. But there were people, it even covers like COVID and flu clinics to be set up. Everything is in the document. That's existed for years. Our work was an update on that. That was the Medical Reserve Corps, the MRC, led that work, so she was in charge of the Medical Reserve Corps at the time. So
So maybe it just needs to be updated with.
it still exists. This would be on it. It has never been identified as a particular issue, but that's because maybe battery storage didn't exist at the time. I think you used to come to those meetings, Donna.
Right. So
Of course
the
she
town
did.
does have an emergency preparedness one.
That's
For
the
the
document.
whole-
yes.
yeah, for the whole.
But that was under the Board of Health, under the,
Maybe their sign-off was on it, but that document was generated by the MRC
right.
at the
right.
time.
But then, beyond that, the town does have, I don't know where it is.
Okay, so that's,
So
we're
to that-
making progress.
To that point, I want to make sure that we're focusing on the planning board, what it is that we can do, and
Yeah.
our scope here, right? So if there is an emergency preparedness document that needs to be reviewed and revised, that's out of our scope. That's out of the scope of our discussion. We've identified someone who we can go and talk to about that, should we so choose. And Rich, I'd advise that you do to get additional information, and feel free to have him available for our future meeting when we do discuss this. If those questions do come up, I'll allow it.
These are really good questions, Jack. One of the questions you asked about, which we're gonna, I intended to do it through the permitting process to answer the question, but if it comes out, it goes to a little different venue, fine. But what I'm gonna say is about the process is, when applications go before the planning board for site plan approval, those are circulated to the public safety departments, police and fire.
And if you get nothing back, you can still approve the site.
Yes.
Because in one of the things I found in a town meeting, you put this language in for site plan approval. It's section F.11.e, general conditions for approval. F.11.c4, adequacy and safety of storage facilities, methods for fuel, refuse, vehicles, and other material incidental to the use of the site. That sounds to me like you guys have some skin in this game for the safety and storage facilities and materials as a condition of approval. I think you guys drafted that, right?
I don't think it specifically is implying battery storage.
No,
though.
but it says methods for fuel, refuse,
Yes.
vehicles, and other material and equipment incidental to the use of the site. Batteries are incidental and required.
Well, they're not incidental to the
They're not
use of the
incidental.
site,
They're
right?
vital.
So it's not necessarily covered by this.
Right.
We can play the legalese game all we want, but I don't want to go back and forth on this topic right now. We at the bottom of our agenda. I'd love to get home at a decent hour,
Okay.
and it's going to be a frustrating discussion for all of us. So my recommendation is that we move forward with additional discussion pursuant to what the planning board has oversight over, once we have the plans and we've set a date for it.
And we'll
I'd
see
love to
those-
welcome
we
you
won't
back
see
to that
those
meeting.
plans until,
Until they are provided.
Once they're submitted, then they become public record. You'll have access to them.
okay?
Yeah,
And if they show up too late, we postpone the meeting.
yeah, we won't have
I
it.
can't schedule a public hearing until a complete application is submitted to our office, at least 3 weeks prior to the hearing.
Right.
And you will approve based on what they tell us, or not approve?
We will review them, generate a list of questions. We will have public comment. We will have an opportunity for all of that to occur prior to approving it, however long that requires.
Okay.
So that memorandum that you prepared and sent to the board, and I received a copy of it.
Yep.
I have forwarded to Next Grid already.
Okay.
So they're in possession of it, and these are issues that have come up within the community to be prepared to answer those questions. Some of them are them, and some there's other questions that I know you asked
Yeah.
that others need to answer, but, I heard back from the CEO of Next Grid that it was sent to him, so I know he has possession of it.
So you can put additional conditions on the site approval even after you've approved it?
We can do it for the net new items. It can't necessarily be retroactive.
Okay. Do we know what the previous what they were planning to use before this net new stuff came?
Well, if they're looking to expand the battery storage, they're going to look to add additional pads. They're going to look to do other things with the site. They're going to have to remove or reduce, because right now they're using almost every single square inch we gave them.
So the batteries that that they want to use, I pulled off the specifications from the building department, which were submitted as part of the electrical permit. So those are.
Those are available?
Yeah.
And where can I get those? The building department?
Building department.
But to be clear, that's not part of the site plan review. So what we
Correct.
look at and what we review is not going to be the type of battery that they use and the chemistry behind it and the technology. That's part of the building permit.
The building permit would have that.
Right. That's all reviewed by the electrical inspector.
Okay. All right.
But I do want to thank you for flexing the political muscle, for joining us, for engaging in this debate. It's important that citizens do this. That's why we're an all-volunteer board. We're all interested in, doing what's right for the town.
Right.
100%.
Right. And we're looking out for the safety of the town, too.
100%, absolutely. I've got 4 kids. I'm hoping that they will live here for a very long time and, post-graduate, come back and, continue to make something amazing of this town. That's my personal goal.
So just quickly, that was a drafting error, just so we'll say this later, but NextGrid was the applicant who did the call and wait, which is 15 Lincoln Road. So when the special permit was issued for that, it was a scrivener in terms of coming forward for Pond Street. There was nothing more than that. It's simply.
Cut and paste.
It was a cut and paste, and that was a cutting paste error, and that's it. We all apologize. It went before my eyes. The assistant from ZBA and all the ZBA members that reviewed the document. Whoever reviewed the document, it wasn't picked up.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. Nothing more, nothing less. So in terms of that particular item. And the one thing that we do, I welcome the opportunity to have this forum, because we understand directly through the electrical inspector that Eversource is, I don't know if it's a requirement, it's something I'd like to answer the question, but battery storage on solar projects. That it's not necessarily something it's coming from above, it appears to me, that we're hearing from. And there is battery storage already on the one at Callaway that's on 15 Lincoln Road. It's much, much smaller battery, but there was battery storage there as well.
And NextGrid did that too, right?
Correct.
And generally, the batteries in these types of situations are used to condition the electricity before it gets back to the grid. It's a safety issue, is my understanding. At least I'm not an expert, but I'm a little bit of a nerd.
It's also to send it back to the grid.
Right. And I know before we move to adjourn, Mr. Bakanowski, you did have your hand up before. I want to offer you an opportunity to make a comment, provided it's not something that we've kind of already hashed. If there's anything meaningful you want to contribute to the conversation, I absolutely welcome it.
Since I've been on the consulting side of these projects and worked with planning boards and other boards, more than happy to sit down with you guys, or if you, Melissa and I, we've been chatting briefly over the past couple of weeks as well. I can kind of give you, let's just say, something you don't have to reinvent the wheel with on the checklist that's done to make sure. I'm going to say almost every single town I've worked in, and over the past 10 years, it's probably been 15 where I've had direct involvement, probably another 10 where you sort of carry a portion of the load. It simply allows the planning board sort of becomes the lead on these, and it's a checklist. Did they get responses back from public safety? Did they get response back from board of health and such? So that's something, you're not reinventing the wheel, but it's something that's there. The other thing that sort of has got me really perplexed about this is the fact that the grid in this area is so heavily loaded with solar already. Do you know if NextGrid already has approval from Eversource to add 6 megawatts of solar? This is something. I mean, to give you an idea, there's 5 solar fields north and northeast of this location that are all on the same circuitry. And when the prison went to put in a 60 kilowatt system, they were told that the system is already overloaded.
Yeah, it's out of our purview to know. I would assume, based on the fact that they're looking to make a financial, move out of this, that they're making sure that the ROI is there for them, but it's not something that we can speak to or anything.
Okay, I mean, if I wonder if that's
so we could ask a
typically
question.
when
Yeah, we can certainly
when
ask.
we've worked with clients, we've asked them to provide the approvals from the utilities to the appropriate town boards, just so they know that everything is up above board. In some cases, they've chosen not to do that, and their project gets delayed until that stuff gets squared away.
Yeah.
So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, it's a nice check. I like that. And I do appreciate you offering to put together a common checklist that you've used in the past. It's definitely something that we would look at. I think we have something to that respect from a closeout perspective, but we don't necessarily have something at the front end of our process. Is that right, Rich?
Yeah, not specific to solar, so.
Okay. Yeah, so if there's something that you want to share broadly, please feel free to share it with one of us, Rich or Melissa, and then it'll get distributed appropriately.
Okay, I'll pull the raw forms I've got, because some of them are a little dated, others are, within the past 3 years, but I'll post stuff together and I'll send them off to you guys.
Awesome, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I think that would
Okay,
be helpful
good.
too,
Thank
as
you.
board members change over time, so we can hand them a packet of, here's
Yeah.
what you do,
It's like documentation of how to do the thing.
Yeah,
It was one of
exactly.
the last things that John Weddleton put together with regards to as-built and making sure that all of that was put together. Love that from a legacy perspective for him. But absolutely, really appreciate the help there. And again, I constantly see you at town meetings. You're in a ton of different boards and advisory positions, and just want to say thank you as well to you for flexing your government muscle too. Awesome. So any other comments, updates? If not, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, hearing none, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Andy.